Hello, in this video we're going to look at another progress update. So it's been a while since I've last updated you guys, and there was a lot of focus on a lot of things, but one of them is the environment changes. So I've been really keen on showing off some of the environment changes that we've done over the last few months. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the changes that we've done here and how it looks like. So you can see in the bigger map, perhaps you can't see that too well. I'll move it over here. This is just a small island in the bigger map, so I think it was an 8K by 8K map, but we've got a focus on the starter island. So this is essentially where players will begin their journey. So there's going to be a bit of a shipwreck, you wake up, you don't have much memory, and this is how the story begins. So as we get closer to here, so this is about where you'll spawn essentially. So there's the wreckage over here. There's going to be two characters over here, which we're going to make some jokes and help you with your journey. So they'll tell you, what your movement controls are and things like that. And you'll be on your way. So essentially there'll be a small camp over here. Perhaps they'll be selling some quick food and quick potions to help players get started with their journey. And as they move along, so these crabs over here, these are just placeholders for now. So I'm actually reworking some of the monster combat system. I'm actually going to try and handle this inside Java, to be honest. There's a couple of reasons for that, but like I say, these crabs here are a bit of a placeholder for now, but they're from the N-Hance studio, so I'll link that in the description later on. They're pretty cool. And then as we keep going, you'll come up at a crossroad. So if you were to turn left, there's going to be quite a lot of strong monsters over there, so people will naturally steer towards the right hand side, which will take them to some of the safer areas. So for example, there'll be some trainers over here to help you learn how to handle combat. Perhaps they'll teach you some new skills and things like that. And then there's going to be this pub over here as well. So this pub was actually handcrafted using some of the N-Hance modular building system, but this one in particular was actually handcrafted. But I'll show you some of the ones which were created in an automated fashion. But essentially, there's going to be a bit of a quest log over here, so the quest board, you'll be able to pick up some quests. And inside, I'm quite keen to make the pubs a pretty interactive place, so perhaps in the future there'll be mini games and things like that as well. And as you move forward, there's going to be some other buildings over here. So this one, for example, this is where the blacksmith is going to be. So we're going to be essentially doing a bit of crafting in the game. So this will be a really interesting spot for us. And this one over here, this is a church, but is going to have some hidden meaning behind it. So we're actually going to loop back towards this towards the end of this video. Okay, so if I keep going, and we'll essentially come to the core village area over here. So there's going to be a bit of a port. This port is not going to be usable at the beginning of the game, or at least not part of this first release essentially. As the game grows essentially, and we're going to finish building off this particular island, there's going to be an opportunity for people to take a boat out of it. But like I say, the focus for now is going to be this island. So there's going to be a village here. So ideally we're going to create some villages which will walk around here and interact with certain objects, but over here is going to be a bit of a marketplace, so you'll be able to buy some potions and food and things like that. So some of these assets are actually from the Dreamscape series. There's a Farmlands and Castle pack. Again, I'll include those links in the description as well. And what's cool about this one is that all of these buildings were actually built using the modular building pack. So actually what I'm going to do is I'll just show you how you can go ahead and build some of these buildings. So this is the pack that was used to help me generate some of those buildings. So you can see it's called Easy Building Generation System. So the reason I like this one anyway is because it allowed me to create different types of buildings, or rather not clones of the same one, right? Because you don't really want to have the same looking building all over the village, right? And you can see it's quite well documented, so some documentation available here as well as the video. So this is the one that we're going to look at right now as we go ahead and create just a sample building, so you can see how fast it is to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll just add this into our map, this building controller, and we're going to try and generate a building, and we're going to use this construction widget to actually click the generate. So that's what we'll probably do now. So let's go ahead and add that. So one of the only properties I'll modify here perhaps is the width. So I move the details over to the left. You'll be able to see that you can actually make a couple of different parameters here, a couple of choices. So for example, the upper floor style, you can choose it to a different style, right? So the windows, how would you like that styled? Um, there is a bit of a variety, but at the same time, you know, there are some limitations in place as well. So you'll be able to look at what kind of limitations there are by exploring some of these blueprints themselves. But this building controller really ties some of these blueprints together. Anyway, so let's just make the width a bit longer and let's make the height a bit higher. So in order to actually generate it, you need to open up this widget blueprints and run this as editor utility widget. So this brings up this window and you click generate and boom, we have ourselves a little house. So you'll be able to see that these houses are all slightly different, and that's why I think this pack is quite good, right? Because for example, if I just click delete and regenerate, you'll see that this area is different now, right? So it's a slightly different variety of a house, and that's really why this is quite useful. Um, let's just bring that back to a 3. So we'll just have sort of a square building, 2 floors, click generate, and we have ourselves a nice little house. So I found this to be quite a nice asset pack. You can play around with it and modify it as you see. But yeah, this was quite good. Okay, so perhaps we'll go inside and see what we have. So as expected, this place is unlit, so you'll have to add your own lights. What perhaps is not expected are these tiny little gaps that we see here. So I wonder whether they'll get fixed in some of the future updates to the pack. But one simple thing that you can do is select some of these walls and have a look at the scales and simply modify it ever so slightly, and this will actually bridge the gaps, and now you shouldn't have those holes. So it is something I've noticed as we use them, but yeah, it should be fixable just by making that small adjustment, but perhaps the team there could make a fix. The other thing, as you can see, we're on the first floor or the second floor, depending on how you look at it. And there's no stairs, so something like a stairs will have to get added manually. One good thing is that it should be easy to do so, right? So for example, if I click this floor tile, you'll be able to see that there's a bunch of properties here, and one of them, for example, is this stairs. So you can go ahead and click this stairs button, and it will go ahead and create that for you, and then you'll be able to modify it as you require, right? And then, for example, here, I'm not going to delete this one, I'm just going to simply move it, but you'll be able to have this entryway, right? So now you've got a usable stair. So for example, you might want to just simply remove both of those tiles. I'll just bring that back for now anyway. So the other thing is that obviously it's unfurnished as well, but I think that's expected, right? You'll want to go ahead and design the insides of these properties as you see fit. So one of the things that you can use are these furniture props, and here you're able to essentially decide what it is that you want it to be. So for example, closet, shelves, all of this good stuff, right? Kitchen utensils, so you'll be able to put it around. I'm personally going to use a variety of different packs for the design and stylization of the properties, but that's pretty nice. So, and to be honest, quite a lot of the different packs that you'll see around, they're going to be completely empty inside, so I think this is quite good. All right, cool. I think that's probably enough about the building pack, and we can move on with the demo. Okay, so as mentioned, this is the village where basically the new players will come to. They're going to get some good equipment over here. They're going to get some resources like potions and things like that. Ideally, they're going to get crafted. This space over here, I mean, I just put that building there, but this is actually reserved for a bit of a guild, so a hunter's guild. I'm not sure whether they're going to be included in the MVP, but it is something that's on the roadmap for sure. And yeah, once the players are fully equipped, they're actually going to go back. So they're going to speak with the villagers, and they're basically going to find out that the bandits have been harassing the villagers and stealing from them, essentially, right? So these are some of the fundamental quests which will come with the game. So actually the bandit camp is going to be based not too far from where the shipwreck was, because it was actually the bandits which caused the shipwreck, as you later discover. And you can see that there's a lot of fog here, so we're going to look into that a bit later on, but this is actually caused through some magic and some artifacts, and one of the main quests is actually to remove it. So the Bandit camp is still in development, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll quickly show you over here. So it's got a lot of placeholders for now. So a lot of this is actually going to change, but ultimately we're going to have some makeshift tents over here. So we've got some concept art for what we want to put in here. So these are just, I guess, a bit of placeholders for now, but they'll give you an idea of where the bandits are going to be. So there's going to be a lot of loot over here, so there's going to be some bandits which are going to be taking that over to here, and there's actually going to be another bandit camp over there as well, where there's going to be a port where they're going to ship some of those goods out, but that's currently in development. So I'm just going to go back to here, which is where we spawned from the shipwreck, so that was just around there, and we were basically turning right into the village, but if we were to turn left, there's going to be a bit of a castle over here, so that's one of the final destinations. But before we go into the castle, we're going to have to do some investigation of a mine. So the mine is going to be located over here. So the mine is actually going to be quite dark, and inside this game we're going to have both daytime and nighttime. So actually we're going to need to add some tutorials in place for people to sort of take advantage of the nighttime, essentially, right, with the darkness, because players will have to essentially rely on things like torches, and there's going to be some spells. So for example, the flaming weapon that we've created earlier is actually going to emit a lot of light. So wizards, for example, will be able to use flaming weapons in order to light up certain areas. Perhaps there's going to be dark vision spells and things like that. And warriors are going to be able to use torches and things like that as well. But anyway, as we go through, we're going to find some pretty dark caves. There's going to be some interesting monsters around here. There's going to be some mining spots as well for your crafters to get some materials. So things like copper, maybe tin, as this is the starting area. As we keep going, it will get darker and darker. There's actually going to be a bit of a trap room, perhaps with a mimic or something like that. Let me just maybe change this to unlit now. It will actually get a bit brighter later on as you delve through the darkness. And over here, this is where we're going to experience one of the boss fights. So there's going to be a bit of a treasure room passed through there. This entire room is actually going to change, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. But some of this is just placeholders for now, essentially, right? But ultimately, I think we're going to discover a bit of a cavern, a bit of an old ruin, and there's going to be some bandit bosses over here, which were sort of responsible for some of the pillaging that was going on the island. So after you defeat the boss, so this entryway is actually going to get blocked while you fight until you finish that fight. We're going to get into the treasure room. So again, this treasure room is going to change significantly. So a lot of this is placeholders, and there's going to be another entryway into a bit of a dungeon over here. So there's going to be a bit of treasure, a bit of traps, and as you sort of get through here, I think it was this way. So some of the corridors are going to be specifically narrow so that you actually trigger some of the traps as well. Not sure if the traps are going to be ready in time for, let's say, the January release or whatever, but it's something that we're looking at. But ultimately, yeah, there's going to be some pretty cool things in here, a couple of monsters, and you get to this point and you'll wonder, you know, what's going on here. As you go through this glass, we'll see how this glass gets removed. Perhaps it just goes down, or we break it, I'm not sure. But ultimately, we'll get to this point, which will potentially look familiar, because this was one of the churches or one of these buildings that we looked at earlier, essentially. So as you go into the village. So we'll actually find that this has been taken over by the bandits. So essentially they were putting a front, so they were deceiving some of the villagers as well. And this was essentially part of the story loop which was happening on this island. So I think that's probably enough for this video right now. So I just wanted to demonstrate a couple of things that we were working on. I guess one final thing to note is that inside the dungeon, basically we find an artifact. This artifact we had to take over to this castle, and we needed to essentially activate this artifact, which would then be responsible for removing some of the fog. So this fog is magically created. So you'll see that there's a bit of a gap there. So the idea will be for a ray of light to be essentially lighting up this castle over here. And I guess once that's done, we're planning to create a bit of a scenic thing over here. So let me just select fog. And let's just remove the visibility, and we're essentially going to be able to see there's going to be a huge castle and another much larger town just beyond this island. So giving the player some perspective, you know, that this is just the beginning. This starter island is going to be something, you know, part of much bigger essentially. Right, so I think that's it for this video. Perhaps in one of the next ones we'll be able to play through with one of the characters. Perhaps, you know, I'll spawn the character inside the dungeon and we can have a look at some of the different effects there. Some of the things that we're working on right now is the monster controller in the Java server. So one of the things I want to do is get these crabs walking around and moving. So they were previously working with one of the dedicated servers. But I'm just trying to do a migration right now for performance reasons, and perhaps I'll also show off some additional changes to mining and crafting, as there's been some nice developments in there. And I guess once that's finished as well, we're going to try and introduce some alchemy and potion making, or rather herbalism and alchemy. So I think that's it for this video. Thanks, and see you next time. Bye.